Solo Leveling is not a masterpiece, and the reason everyone loves it has nothing to do with the story. If you spent any amounts of time online, you've likely seen Solo Leveling trending at some point. And what's the common take? The common take is that it's flawless. It's a 10 out of 10. And look, don't get me wrong, it is good, but not for the reason you think. Because while the animation is carrying the show on its back, the actual story leaves a lot to be desired. So we're not doing fanboy praise today. I want to look at what made this show's rollout so surprising, while also not ignoring the writing issues most people tend to skip right past. And once you see these problems, you can't unsee them. Now, let's give credit where credit is due. Solo Leveling is, for all intensive purposes, a dopamine machine. It hooks you instantly because it has a video game feel to it. The main character, Jinwoo, is your average run-of-the-mill Joe Schmo. He starts off as the punk everyone knows. Now, I'm from the Caribbean, so the word punk for us means something specific like coward. He's poor, he's constantly getting hurt, and everyone looks down on him. But the moment he gets his magical system, the show turns into a non-stop loop of immediate rewards, where he clears a dungeon, his stat numbers go up, he gets new daggers, and he instantly beats up the people who used to take him for a trump. So it satisfies that basic part of us that loves watching numbers get bigger and us seeing the underdog win. But what really saved this show from being just another copycat clone are the visuals. Chugong and Red Eye Studios turned this webcomic into a wallpaper factory. Then the animation studio took the drawings, added a heavy-hitting soundtrack, and turned it into a cinematic roller coaster. If we're watching the show just to turn your brain off and see a good fight scene, this is what you need. And it's because it's just that good. But here's where it stops being good. Because when you peel back the animation and cut the music, the script starts to look a bit shaky. Now, the biggest issue with this anime is built right into the title. The story takes the word solo way too seriously. Think about stories like Naruto, Jujutsu Kaisen, or Bleach, for example, where the side characters have their own goals, they have their own struggles, and they feel like real people. Solo Leveling doesn't have this. The side characters aren't that interesting to begin with. The story introduces these characters as some legendary, overhyped hunters just to have them get mopped up by some low-level grunt. And why does it do this? It does this entirely so that the MC can show up at the last second with his hands in his pockets and look cool while saving them. And because no one else matters, his character becomes less interesting as the show goes on. Like, think about it. In life, we don't really worry about someone who can handle everything by themselves. There's no tension, there's no worry. Like, you don't worry about them because they can handle everything literally by themselves. At the start, Jinwoo feels fear, he feels desperation, he actually has worries. But once he becomes overpowered, when he gets stronger, he basically turns into an emotionless statue who just stands around again with his hands in his pockets, never having to struggle at all after that. Like, when the main character can't lose and has no rivals to push him, all the actual tension in the story dies with him. Like, think of the dynamic between Goku and Vegeta. They're rivals that complement each other's character. Vegeta is the smarter one between the two, and then Goku is Goku. Like, the dynamic matters. Solo Leveling doesn't have anything like that. And if you think the character issues are bad, wait until you look at the world they live in. Solo Leveling is a breath of fresh air. In one way, it gave us a change of scenery we've never really had before, even if it's just a small detail. The concept of dungeons might be the same as some isekai, But the fact that the story is based in Korea and not Japan or the US makes it unique in that aspect. But that's where the world building stops. Because a random gate opens, hunters walk in, they clear the monsters out, and a slightly bigger gate opens up sometime next week. There's no deep lore, no unique culture, no real political consequences to anything that's happening within that world. Even when the story tries to finally explain why these gates are appearing near the end, it doesn't really feel like a natural mystery being explained. It feels like an info dump of basic fantasy tropes thrown at the audience just to justify 20 more chapters of straight punching and fighting. The plot is basically an old lumpy mattress covered with new sheets, and those new sheets are obviously the animation. And people try to defend this with the villains carry the show or whatever, and no, that's not gonna work. We need more than that. You know, the lack of character motivations in Solo Leveling is a real problem, and I mentioned this a little bit in my last video. After Jinwoo healed his mom, his character took a dip in terms of interest. Like I was genuinely invested because I could see his goal and how much it meant to him. Once that goal was achieved, I could really care less about what happened next after that. So after all of that talking and after me picking this story apart, what's the actual verdict? Solo Leveling walked into the industry like John Wick on the people that took his dog. You know, it came in swinging, and I respect that. The animation is for sure top tier, and the dopamine hit is real. If you're here for fights and a spectacle, you're gonna love it because it's just that good. But here's what bothers me about that. We don't have to pretend that the writing is perfect just because the fights look good. And that matters. And that matters because what we reward as a fandom is what we get more of. You know, if we keep celebrating shows purely just for the spectacle and, you know, completely ignore the storytelling, we're telling the studios, you know, don't bother with the writing, just make it look pretty and everybody's gonna love it. And that's how you get decades of just straight garbage isekai animes with absolutely no substance behind them. So Solo Leveling is most definitely fun to watch. You know, it's a 7 out of 10 from me. You know, carried hard by the animation, yes, and presentation, but held back by an empty world and a story that stops trying once the main character can punch his way through literally anything. No, that's my honest opinion on that. But yeah, let me know what y'all boys think in the comments down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think I'm hating? Drop a like and a sub if you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.